We tend to file lucid dreaming under modern discovery, a curiosity of the sleep laboratory, something proved in the 1970s and popularized on the internet. That is almost exactly backwards. Lucid dreaming is one of the oldest documented spiritual technologies on Earth, and by the time a polygraph pen confirmed it in 1975, it had already been taught, refined, and written down, continuously, for the better part of 1,000 years. The laboratory did not discover it. The laboratory finally caught up. The most complete system we have comes from Tibet, and it has a name: Mi-Lam, Dream Yoga. It is not a folk belief or a scattering of anecdotes. It is a structured curriculum, with stages, prerequisites, troubleshooting, and a defined purpose. One of 6 practices transmitted together and known as the 6 Yogas of Naropa. Naropa was an Indian master of the 11th century, and by tradition the practices came to him from his teacher Tilopa. They traveled to Tibet through a translator named Marpa, who crossed the Himalaya more than once to collect them, and who taught them in turn to a hermit poet called Milarepa. That chain, teacher to student, unbroken and deliberate, is why we still have the instructions in detail. And the instructions are worth hearing because they are startlingly practical. Begin in daylight. Throughout the day, question the reality in front of you, not as a game, but seriously, repeatedly, until doubt becomes a habit that follows you across the threshold of sleep. What the modern manuals call a reality check, Dream Yoga was prescribing a millennium ago. Then, as you fall asleep, hold a clear intention to recognize the dream as a dream. Some lineages pair this with visualizing a luminous syllable at the throat, a focus for attention as consciousness dissolves. And when you wake, remember. Recall is the foundation. A dream you cannot remember is a night you did not attend. That is stage 1. Recognition. Simply knowing inside the dream that you are dreaming. Stage 2 is transformation. Having recognized the dream, you change it. Deliberately. You multiply a single object into many. You turn something small into something enormous. You travel somewhere impossible. This is not showing off. It is evidence gathering. Each successful change demonstrates, in a way no argument can, that the world in front of you is made of mind and answers to it. Stage 3 turns that lesson around and points it at your waking life. If the dream is constructed and pliable, and you could not tell from inside it, then what exactly is the status of the world you are standing in now? The practice is not trying to make you doubt the pavement. It is dismantling the assumption that appearances are solid, fixed, and independent of the one perceiving them. And stage 4 goes past imagery altogether, into what the tradition calls clear light. Awareness sustained without content. Not dreaming, not unconscious, simply present. Which brings us to what the whole thing was actually for, because Dream Yoga was never designed as entertainment. It was designed as rehearsal for dying. In Tibetan cosmology, death is a passage through intermediate states, the bardos, in which the mind meets appearances it has generated itself, and mistakes them for external reality, exactly as it does in a dream. So a practitioner who has learned to recognize a dream while inside it, night after night for decades, has been training the one capacity that is supposed to matter at the end: the ability to recognize a projection while it is happening, and not be swept away by it. Every night of sleep, in this view, is a dress rehearsal, and the person who has done the work arrives at the real performance already knowing the part. Tibet has an older layer too. Bön, the indigenous tradition that predates Buddhism there, carries its own dream and sleep teachings, preserved in a cycle known as the Mother Tantra. Bön draws a distinction worth keeping. Dream yoga works with the images of the dream, while sleep yoga concerns awareness in deep, dreamless sleep. The darkness where there is nothing to see, and the practice is to remain present anyway. Dream practice, in that framing, is the beginner's half of a much larger discipline. And this is not only Tibetan. India mapped the same territory earlier still. The Mandukya Upanishad, short enough to read in a few minutes, old enough that we cannot date it confidently, divides consciousness into 4 states: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and a 4th, turiya, which is not a state alongside the others but the awareness in which all 3 arise. Dreaming was not treated as noise between useful hours. It was treated as one of the fundamental modes of being conscious, worth the same attention as the other 2. Go west, and the emphasis shifts from insight to healing. For centuries, sick people across the Greek world traveled to sanctuaries of Asclepius, the largest at Epidaurus, and slept there deliberately. The practice was called incubation. You purified yourself. You made an offering. You lay down in a chamber reserved for the purpose, and you waited for a dream. In the dream, the god would appear and either treat you directly or tell you what to do. The next morning, you reported it to the priests. Set aside whether a god was present. Look at the structure. A culture built dedicated architecture, staffed it with specialists, and sent its citizens to sleep on purpose in a specific place with a specific question, expecting an answer to arrive in a dream. That is dream incubation as public health infrastructure. It ran for something like 1,000 years. Egypt did the same earlier and left the paperwork. Their temples offered incubation too, in halls built for the purpose, at the feet of the gods. And a papyrus we now call the Dream Book, copied more than 3,000 years ago, lists dream after dream with a verdict beside each one. Good, bad, what it means. Someone, that long ago, sat down and systematized dreaming. And in the Islamic world, the Andalusian mystic Ibn Arabi, writing in the 13th century, went further than cataloging. He described an intermediate world, the imaginal realm, neither purely physical nor purely abstract, a place where meaning takes on form. Dreams, he said, open onto it. And he left an instruction that would not be out of place in a modern induction manual, that a person should learn to control their thoughts while dreaming, that this alertness can be trained, and that everyone should apply themselves to acquiring so valuable an ability. 13th century. Train your awareness inside the dream. It is a skill. Go and get it. So, Tibet, Bön, India, Greece, Egypt, Islamic Spain, traditions separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, with no common textbook, converging on the same 3 claims: that the dream is a place and not merely a symptom. That attention inside that place can be trained deliberately with a method. And that something real can be carried back across the threshold: healing, guidance, insight, or the readiness to meet your own mind without flinching. They did not have polygraphs. They could not prove any of it to a skeptic. What they had instead was 1,000 years of practitioners comparing notes, refining instructions, discarding what failed, and passing on what worked. And when the laboratory finally arrived, with electrodes and eye signals and a pen scratching on a moving roll of paper, It did not overturn any of it. It confirmed the mechanism the traditions had been exploiting all along. Science supplied the proof. The traditions supplied the method and the reason. You need both. Proof without practice is a fact you can recite. Practice without proof is a discipline you might abandon the first time someone tells you it is impossible. Put them together, and you have something you can actually do tonight. Dreamwalking is a practitioner's guide to that discipline, the science of getting there, and the tradition of what to do once you arrive. Inside, you will learn to hold lucidity in the dreamscape, to read the symbolic language of your subconscious, to work with dreams for healing and divination, to meet guides, allies, and deeper aspects of the self, and to weave dream work into your everyday practice. 1,000 years of practitioners left instructions. This is the book that hands them to you. Dreamwalking, available now at books.by/Cale Waring.